Here's Dr. May's book, Love and Will, and it doesn't resemble a Kleenex box. What do you make of a man who would have a round bed anyway?
Oh, that.
I mean, really. I can hear Groucho saying, "How do you corner someone in a round bed?" Yeah. But frivolously, folks. You don't have to.
Well,
answer that,
I
Phil.
did. If Mr. Hefner wants to come up to my office, we have a nice talk about it.
I see.
No free consultation, eh? Okay.
You have a lot of disturbing things in the book, and one of them is that, I guess, just the overall idea that we live in an age supposedly of liberation, what we were talking about, and yet there's an increasing amount of neurosis. So all the freedom that everyone has screamed about that would make us mentally healthy supposedly has not. And one of the results of that, you said, is that in treatment you have a gigantic increase in the number of impotent males. This is one of the things that people are talking about who have read the book. Why is this?
Well, I think it's precisely because of the complete freedom. You see, human life needs to be channeled, and the male especially becomes his potency depends upon how much he can give himself to a situation. It's largely an unconscious thing. Now, with everybody free, there's no time to, there's no pause, there's no time to think, there's no time to feel down deeply. And what this does for us psychotherapists is bring us many more men who have to make the block on a deeper level. They make the block, the block, yeah, of sexual, the sexual block, and then they become impotent. Now, it's a very curious thing, but I think we live in a whole impotent society. I think this society of tremendous power, atomic power and electric power, the new electric age, I think the whole society is shot through with an impotence, particularly of men. And they are not impotent also in the sexual relationship.
I'd like to take at least partial serious exception to that. I don't think that there's any question but what, for many reasons unrelated to the male-female relationship, the continuing complexity, the increasing complexity of society, that in a broad sense there is a feeling of impotence that never existed before. Man is not the master of his own destiny as he once was. But I'd be very interested in, there are additional problems with the new freedom that we have. But I think that I think that's a necessary step that will be resolved, and that I refuse to blame the freedom for it. I think that you have to go through this transition. There's no question but what, for example, with the change in identities that men and women have today, and with the greater freedom that women are enjoying, that she is a little something more to handle for the man, and the interpersonal relationships, that would pose a problem. But I would be very interested in hearing the doctor's reaction to the question of female frigidity, because I would be stunned and would really find it very difficult to believe if there aren't fewer frigid women today than there were, let's say, at the end of the last century.
In other words, the women have gained what the men have lost, do you think?
Yes, for understandable reasons, I think, and I think that the men also. I think it's a necessary step towards a better society in which both will gain eventually. I think there's more communication. I think that women are more truly human today than they were in the Victorian period, and that's a little more to cope with. And so one of the points, I know that in a little while we're going to be talking with some feminists here tonight. I think that sexual emancipation and female emancipation work hand in hand, and that the sexual revolution that's taken place here is one of the greatest boons to female emancipation, because the women have the most to gain. It's women that have really had that really second-class citizenship role at best, and at least really have been an object and have paid dearly for it in the centuries past.
This is an interesting point that you've raised here, though. If women are,
what
about, are more or less frigid and men are more impotent, it doesn't really do the women much good, does it?
Something very interesting, incidentally related.
We're trying to keep this on a high plane.
Yes. Masters and Johnson down in St. Louis are doing what I think is probably the most important sexual research probably of anyone in the world right now. And a new book by them is going to be released in...
Wire me up.
Within the next month.
Those are the ones.
Wired, baby.
They are...
Grace, are you...
They are getting incredible results with both impotence and frigidity in a very short period of time, in turning it around with men that have been impotent all their lives, and turning it around in a 2-week reconditioning system. Absolutely incredible results, and it's going to be front page news in about 3 weeks, I'd say.
Really?
Yes,
Yes.
incredible results.
Now, you see, we look at this in somewhat different ways, but I think your remark, "Wire me up," is very fitting for the Masters-Johnson research, because and I have a number of patients who have been out there for impotence and frigidity, and have not found it successful. I think Masters and Johnson can do very interesting things in a limited technical area, but the problems of most of us don't fall in that area. You see, when women become more demanding and expecting, as they rightly should. See, I don't blame the new freedom for this. I blame the fact that our whole society is in a period of transition, and none of us have found ourselves yet in a way that will fit the new expectations and our new sorts of marriages. And now men have a tremendous pull on them. They have to perform. See, all kinds of men feel they have to go to bed whether they want to or not. And if they don't go to bed, they aren't men. I remember one of my patients had a dream that had a little homosexuality in it, as everybody does sooner or later. It's a normal part of everybody's development. He got very worried and decided he had to perform very well that night with his girlfriend. Trying to perform, trying to go to bed even though you don't want to, is a way men have of showing they're potent. Now, you see, this never really works, because sooner or later it leads to an impotence.
Once you're preoccupied with it, you've already defeated it. In a sense,
Yeah, that's
I
right.
suppose.
You've already defeated it. You see, one ought to be preoccupied not with the technical way of having sexual intercourse. This ought to be simply assumed. Furthermore, it's different with every person.
And of course, with that I very much agree.
It's entirely different with every person.
But I gather that you do not agree with Masters and Johnson are the people who brought people into the lab and actually filmed them and observed them, which
They
is
brought them in and wired them
right.
up.
yeah,
That
on
I
the face of it,
assume
that seems so
wired.
ludicrously funny to me that
Well,
and
it's,
absurd that I find it hard to see it anything but humorously, and yet they put out a very serious book
Yeah,
about it.
let's not
but-
remember this. Masters and Johnson have taken a lot of
Pasting.
yes, from old Calcutta to parodies of all kinds, because they were the first ones that had the guts, and it really was the guts to research in real detail the physiology of sex. One of the most important aspects of our lives that we knew literally nothing about.
But the objection
And-
is that the minute you try to observe it in the laboratory, you defeat the
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
thing.
Yes,
because
well,
it's-
but it didn't work out that way. There are
It's hard to
certain
call it.
physiological phenomena that you can discover. They did discover. Their book, Human Sexual Response, which became a bestseller, has very important work in it, but nothing compared to what is about to be released. Right. On the basis of what appears to be really incredible turnarounds in both impotence and frigidity, and they are now working with homosexuals, both male and female, and apparently also getting some remarkable results, which is unbelievable because that's always been considered to be largely a condition of lifelong duration. And now are getting involved in the problem of juvenile sexual defendants, where in the St. Louis area, they are, when a sexual deviant where there is no problem in terms of, let's say, an aggressive act of rape or something, but is arrested, rather than going to prison, he's able to, if he wants to, and with his parents' consent, go to their clinic. And the implications in terms of the results that they seem to be getting, suggest perhaps a whole new breakthrough in the area of reconditioning sexual problems.
But it seems to me that sexual problems are not dealt with, it cannot be dealt with directly by reconditioning. I think sexual problems are a part of the total person. It's not a sexual organ we're dealing with. I think that's the fault of Master and Johnson all the way through.
Well, I
now,
think
they can find out some interesting things about physiology.
I'm sorry we got off on Masters and Johnson.
But
'cause we did-
physiology doesn't make sex. And it also doesn't make love. It doesn't make relationships.
Well, there's something important here, and I think that the audience should be aware of the fact that the disagreement that is being expressed here is a disagreement that exists between the psychoanalytical approach and the behaviorist or reconditioning approach. And when the problem is impotence or frigidity, there may be other underlying emotional problems that indeed need psychoanalytical attention. But if in the meantime you can treat that symptom and solve it, you've taken a giant step towards resolving the individual's problem.